Hello, everyone, and welcome to our third session of the year of the Spotfire Quarterly Connect Community Series. My name is Roby Fisk, and I will be your moderator for this session. A couple of quick housekeeping reminders before we start. We will have a Q&A session at the end of each of today's presentations, so please submit your questions anytime through the question box on the screen on the right side of your computer. We will also have Spotfire office hours to field any additional questions at the end of all of today's sessions. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be shared out with all attendees in the upcoming days. We have a fantastic lineup of presentations and speakers for you today. These will be our speakers that will be presenting during the sessions today. And we'll also show you the agenda. So you'll see at the end, number 4, we've got our office hours, which is open to all questions that you might have. So look forward to that at the end of the session today. And for our first session of the day, I would like to introduce Martinez. He's currently our Senior Informatics Products Sales Specialist. And I'll give you a moment to read his bio, and then I will hand it over to Danny's to begin his presentation. Thank you, Danny's.
Thank you, Robbie, for the introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, depending on where you're joining from. Thank you all for joining us today. Today we'll be talking about typical Spotfire mods at this first section of the Spotfire Quarterly Connect Plus. And what are mods? Well, mods are a lightweight framework that allows providing users with advanced visualizations. These visualizations are fully integrated in the Spotfire environment, so they will be accessible to you via the visualization types file panel in Spotfire as with native visualizations. And you will interact with them in the same way you do with the usual built-in native Spotfire visualizations. Mods can be easily shared, distributed. All you need to do is download and drag and drop a .mod file into your Spotfire environment, in your Spotfire session. And from there on, you'll be empowered to start using mods in your dashboard and start exploring your data in the same way you used to with Spotfire native visualizations. Users with the proper knowledge of JavaScript, HTML, and APIs can develop mods. This has given birth to a broad community of mods developers that allow distributing new advanced visualizations that grow in number very fast. So we have new mods every month. Security is guaranteed with mods as well. Every time a new mod is created and first brought into a Spotfire environment, the mod is electronically signed by means of a certificate issued by the Spotfire server. And these certificates contain the information regarding who created the mod, who signed it. So the user can always know the source of it before deciding whether the mod is safe to be trusted and used in their analysis. And besides users being able to trust mods individually before using them, the Spotfire server administrator can also centralize this access by allowing by default mods coming from specific sources to be trusted for specific users and groups. This is an example of the process from installing between quotation marks and in using the mods. And I say installing between quotation marks because the process of that allows you to start using mods is just, as I mentioned before, simply a drag and drop of a single small file, a mod file, into your Spotfire session, so into your Spotfire instance. When you do that, you'll be presented with a trust dialog that shows you all the information regarding the source of the mod, so you can as a user, decide whether this mod should be trusted for the use, you can always, of course, choose to trust all mods coming from that specific source. So in this case, if I choose to trust this area chart and I click on this box down here below that says always trust mod signed by TIBCO Spotfire Inc., I will be, let's say by default, trusting any other mod coming from that source, and I wouldn't need to trust this manually every time. And once you trust the mod, it will appear in the visualization flyout panel in Spotfire, and you can right away start using the mod to create dashboard and explore your data as you're used to with native Spotfire visuals. This is an example, it's a screenshot of how mods can interact and be used side by side with Spotfire native visuals. So you have, in this case, for example, a map chart and a scatter plot chart, Spotfire native visuals, side by side with it's an area chart, which is a mod. And you can, with mods, use and make use of all Spotfire capabilities in order to explore your data. So you can make use of marking, filterings. Mods interact perfectly well with the rest of Spotfire native visuals and other mods as well. You can create detailed visualizations. You can use mods as master visuals or secondary visuals. And they, of course, will appear as well in any PDF report you create. The same with PowerPoint exports. You can also save mods individually as images. So again, the full breadth of capabilities that the native visuals provide you with, you can have them with mods. And today, I wanted to show you a quick example of how to build a dashboard using mods. But before doing that, let's go to the TIBCO mods page so we can see what's there and start getting used to that environment. So you can see all the options we have. So here is the TIBCO Spotfire mods page. You can see there are a lot of mods. You can have the Gosh mod, for example, which allows you to visualize multiple parameters of every single point in your data. You have also the tag mod that allows using individual string elements in your columns of data to filter the data, mark, drill down into it. So if you have let's say a column with tag separated elements, the tag mod will present them to you as individual items you can use to filter down the data and drill down into it. You have the Somber chart mod, for example, that is very useful to explore hierarchical data, and many more mods. So actually, there are 3 pages full of mods you can explore, and you can actually test the mods before deciding whether the mods are where you're looking for. So for example, if I want to test this network chart mod before adding it to my Spotfire instance, I can go ahead and enter the network chart mod page. From there on, I can choose to try this mod in TIBCO Cloud. So when I click on this button, I'll be presented with a Spotfire instance in TIBCO's Cloud, representing some data in the network mod. So you can, start interacting with it. In this case, you can, see how the network mod behaves. You can move around the nodes and see, how to explore your data using the network mode. You can zoom in, zoom out. You can move it around. So the full breadth of interaction you have with Spotfire native visualizations, you have them with mod as well. You'll actually, leverage these capabilities even more when you use the Spotfire desktop version. So in order to show you an example of how to create a dashboard using mods, I'm going to gather some data. Let me go ahead and find some data. So I have some data coming from the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, specifically the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. Is historical data, public data of all the new biologic approvals from 1985 to 2021. So I'm just going to drag and drop this data into a Spotfire instance. I'm going to click OK to load the data. I'm going to click OK to store it as a new data table. Before we start creating the dashboard, let's start taking a look at the data. So I'm going to add a table visualization. We can see and understand a little bit what our data is containing. So we can see that we have multiple rows of data, actually 1,200 of them. Each line of data shows information for these biologics. So as you know, biologics are, let's say, marketed medicines, which active principle has been isolated from a biological source. So we can see that for each of them, from 1985 to 2021, we have information like the active ingredient, the company that owns it, approval year, dosage form, route of administration, approved use, and many more information. You can actually see that some of this information can be actually explored and related as hierarchies. So I could think that, for example, route of administration and dosage form are information that can form hierarchies. And actually, I can add another level, which should be the owns biologics name. In order to see that more clearly, I'm going to go to the properties dialog, and I'm going to color the columns. Actually, the route of administration, I'm going to color by the values. I'm going to add also a coloring to the dosage form. So we can see that, for example, that in the route of administration, we have multiple routes. So we have injection, oral, topical, ophthalmic, and we can see that within some of these routes, we have multiple possibilities in terms of the dosage forms. So for example, for oral route, we have multiple dosage forms like tablet, capsules, and granules. And probably that repeats for most of the routes of administration. So these data can be shown in a hierarchical way. And you can certainly use Spotfire's own native visualizations in order to explore hierarchical data. So you can go to the visualizations flat panel. You can see the full list of Spotfire's native visuals. And you can use, for example, pie charts or tree maps to represent hierarchical data. But there is one mod that, in my opinion, combines the best of these two visuals, the tree map and the pie chart, and it's very useful to explore hierarchical data, and that is the sunburst mode. So I'm going to go back to the TIBCOS page, and I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back to the pages listing all mods. I think it's in page 1. And I am going to bring the sunburst chart mode into my environment. So all I have to do is enter this specific mods page. And at the right-hand side, I can see all the downloadable information I have for this specific mod and for each version of this mod. So I can see the user guide, license, and the mod itself. I'm going to click to download the mod itself, going to bring it into the desktop. And once it is on my desktop, I'm going to go ahead and extract all this data. Now I can see a folder structure inside of which I can see this .mod file, which is the mod itself. So all I have to do is drag and drop again this file into my Spotfire session, bring it there. Now you can see the trust dialog. So it shows me who signed this mod. As I showed you before in the slide, I can choose to always trust mods coming from the TIBCOS page, and I can click trust. And now my mod is already there in my visuals. I am actually going to leave this page for data, for example. I'm going to add a new page for what I'm going to call a my interactive catalog. I'm actually going to bring my mod to the second page. All right, if I go to the visualization file panel, I can see the sunburst chart is now there. It's a little bit separated from the rest of the native visuals, and that's because I need to go ahead and to use this 3 dots option here and save it as a library item. Now I can save that mod in a folder I have access to, for example, my own folder. I'm going to save it as a mod in there. And once I do that, I'm able now to pin this mod in the list of Spotfire visuals, and now it will remain there permanently. So even if I close this session and open it again, it will be there for me to use it. yourself or your colleagues eventually will use mods very much, and will start saving multiple mods into the library. So you can use the visualization types lookup to also find other mods you can have access to from the library. So I can choose to find visualization in the library. I can see all the mods I have access to, and I know that, for example, in this example I'm going to show you, I'm going to be using the text card. So I can go ahead, click on the 3 buttons, and actually pin it to my visuals again to have it handy there for me. So now it is there. Both mods, I can have access to them right away from the visualization file panel. So let's start exploring our data. Let's start creating our hierarchy. So I'm going to, as I mentioned earlier, choose a hierarchy that's going to be first level, route of administration. I can continue to add more levels like dosage form and the proprietary name of the biologics itself. And I'm going to color it by the lowest level of the hierarchy, which is the route of administration. So all sections have colors. So now you can see that while I'm hovering over any section of the sunburst mode, the section is highlighted. I can mark individual sections, focusing on each individual segment of this visualization to explore the data. Note that whenever I hover over any section, I can see the percentage that section occupies in the whole data set. Some mods have these settings icon here you can access directly, and have access to specific features of the visualization. Like, for example, in this case, I can choose to show all labels or only those for macros, or no show labels at all. I can also choose to show segments with empty values or sort segments by value. If I choose to do that, for example, we can see that now segments are sorted clockwise. I can see that most of the biologics approaching 1985 are out of route of administration oral, followed by injections, intravenous, topical, and so on. As I mentioned earlier, mods interact like any other native visualization you have in Spotfire. So I can, for example, need to see all the information I have from any section I mark from this visualization. So what I can do is I can create a detailed visualization. So note first that in this dialog, I have the option to select any Spotfire visual or any native Spotfire visual, but also any mod that I have saved and pinned to my list of visuals as well. But for now, I'm going to select the table to see all the information of any section I use. So whenever I select any section of the data from this sunburst shad mode, I'll be seeing the underlying information from that section. Let's say that I want to go into more detail and, for example, see the approved use of all of these biologics I'm reviewing the information from. And the approved use is a long chunk of text, which you can, of course, read in a column in a Spotfire table. But there is a mod that makes this even easier, which is the text card mod. So I'm going to go ahead again and create a detailed visualization, which is going to be a text card. I'm going to set it and give it a little bit more space. I'm going to start adding the information I need. So I'm going to show the content I want to see, which is the approved use. I want to use as annotation the proprietary name of the biologics, and I want to color this by the route of administration. Okay, so now whenever I select any section of the data from the sunburst mode, I can see all the information if I want to, but I can also see all the approved use for each of the biologics in that section. That goes to any section I select from that sunburst mode. So as you can see, interactivity is seamless between mods and native Spotfire visuals. So you can this way and this quick start creating your own interactive catalog of any data you might be interested in reviewing. There is also something very interesting about the sunburst mode, which is its drill down mode. So if I go to the settings again, I can see that the Sunburst mode has two modes, which is the marking mode, which is what you and we are all, mainly and mostly using from any Spotfire visualization. You can also access a drill down mode, which you can drill down into Spotfire native visualizations. You just need to go to the properties and do a few clicks here and there. But here with the Sunburst mode, you have it right away with as an option itself. So that is what mods are about, expanding and extending Spotfire native visualizations and taking them one step further. So it's even easier to explore the data. So now I have selected to use the drill down mode. So whenever I want to only see one specific section of the Sunburst mode, so I can focus, for example, in intravenous biologics, I can click on that section and I'll be drilling down only into that section. Let me remove all the markings so you can see more clearly. If I want to continue moving down, for example, and see only the intravenous injectable biologics, I can continue drilling down. I can see all of the biologics in that section. And I can combine both modes of the Sunburst, because if I want to now see the approved use of only individual biologics in this group, I can go back to the marking mode and select any of them, and I'll be seeing only the information for that specific biologics I'm interested in. And as I said at the beginning, mods interact in a full way as any other Spotfire visual. So you can add mods to your PDF export. So I can, for example, create a PDF report where I'll have my mod there, as you can see. And I can also save it as an individual image, or I can export it as a PowerPoint presentation. So mods have full interaction, and they behave exactly the same as any other Spotfire native visualization, providing you with expanded and extended capabilities to explore your data. This is the quick example I wanted to show you all today on how to use mods to create dashboards and explore your data. I don't know if we have time for questions, or should I leave the floor to my colleague Laura?
We can take any questions that we want to answer now, and if not, we can wait till later. There are a couple questions in the question box.
Maybe Dennis, you can show the link to download the mods, how you can access it from the TIBCO page.
Oh yes, let me go back to my PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, I sent that the chat as well to the asker.
Okay, great. Thanks, Laura.
No worries.
Thank you, Dennis. I think we will move on to our next presentation of the day if there are no more questions. And like I said, remember to submit your questions in the question box on the right side of your screen. And remember that we have time with the office hours at the end for additional questions. So we want to make sure that we get to all of your questions throughout the presentations today.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you all.
So for our next presentation of the day, we have a speaker, Laura Hernandez. She's currently the team lead analytics consulting services role, and we will pull up her bio here, and I'll give you a moment to look at that. And Laura, I will hand it over to you. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. Just wanted to make sure you can see the right screen.
Yes.
Just a second. This is the perfect. Yeah. Can you see the slide presentation, right?
Yes, out of the box.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so hello everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us. I wanted today to present how we can extend Spotfire with mods, but looking more from a development point of view. Which makes complete sense now that we've seen how Dennis has quite perfectly presented how we can deploy and use quite easily in Spotfire a mod that is already developed, right? We had taken examples from TIBCO. I'm going to show you one example that we developed in our team. And well, the title is Out of the Box and Outside the Box. And we are looking at the box plot development with mods. Let me go to the next slide. So some concepts regarding extending Spotfire with mods. There's some, let's say, steps that we have to follow when looking at developing with mods. First step will be to find code. And the main question that we can ask ourselves, why don't we start from scratch? So the answer to that is purely a matter of time and also getting advantage, right, of the variety of JavaScript examples that we find around visuals in the internet, right? So there, in this first image, right, that we can see all those sources offers a lot of examples in JavaScript for visuals, only for visuals and plots. In our example, we use D3, which we found to be one of the simplest way to start. That's why we choose that one. But there are a lot of them, and also a lot of examples that TIBCO community is putting out there to follow and to start with. The second step will be prepare development. So of course we have to use a little some applications, right? GitHub to download the templates, Visual Studio Code to develop, and then there's the Node.js. So this is the node that will be running in the background. This is useful because we can see quickly the changes in Spotfire. If some of you are already familiar to extending Spotfire, we have, for example, C# extensions, we have IronPython, we have R, we have Python scripts. All of them are quite independent from Spotfire in the sense that you have to develop elsewhere, you have to compile, maybe you have to deploy, and then you have to see how it works in Spotfire, right? And the good thing about mods is that so TIBCO has thought about that in a way that you can quickly see how it interacts, right? There's a real communication between the desktop, the analyst, and your Visual Studio Code. So that's really good to see. Let me go to the third step. So it will be starting code. Of course, we need to starting from some already existing source, we have to adapt somehow the code, right? And that is done using the Spotfire API, which is one of the challenges, right, with mods development. It's this JavaScript Spotfire API, which is extended quite often, right? But currently, not all the features are there. And of course, this is something that will be enriched in the future. So that's for us the challenge that has so far mods development. Let me go to the next slide. I'm starting a bit with a refresher on what's a box plot. This will be useful for me to explain to you the motivations to do a second version of a box plot. Okay. So a box plot. So, well, we have the definition here, right? A method for graphically demonstrating the locality, spread, and the symmetry, right, of the data, groups of numerical data through their quartiles. As a refresher as well, a quartile is a measure which divides, basically you divide the data points starting from smallest to largest in 4 parts, okay, or quarters, let's say. Important thing as well, in a box plot we have the box and we have the whiskers as the little lines here, okay. And then, of course, in the box plot, looking at the upper side of the image, don't mind so much this other part in the bottom side. In here, we can see 5-number summary. It's really impressive how with only this image we can have so many information about how our data is distributed, right? So we have, of course, the minimum and the maximum, which are defined by the boundaries here of the whiskers. We have the median, which is the middle value in the data set. We have the Q1 and the Q3. So those are the lower quartile. We can name that as well instead of first or third. The lower quartile and the upper quartile. The lower quartile, sorry, the Q1 being the median of the lower half of the data set. So all the data that is in the left-hand side of the median, and the Q3 upper quartile, the median of this part in here, in the right-hand side. And in addition, of course, we have an additional measure that we could calculate quite easily is the interquartile. It's the difference between upper and lower quartile. Looking at the whiskers, there's two representations that are used in publications, right? We have the typical one, the one that we are all used to see, the one that we have in Spotfire, which is this one. And you can see that the difference is only that the outliers are not included in the whiskers. Okay, so we can spot quite easily where the outliers are. But there's another one that is also used, that it's the simple representation, let's say, and the outliers are included, meaning that the boundaries are really the minimum value of the data for this specific group, for example. The boundaries in the typical box and whiskers are calculated in a different way, right? It's a mathematical expression, 1.5 values the interquartile, etc. So this is how this is calculated, and this is something that it's not present, for example, in the built-in box plots in Spotfire. And looking at this slide, so the question is why building something outside the box that we have already in Spotfire? It was really, first of all, to gain some knowledge, right, on mods development, which is always great, but also because our customers that are really used to use Boxplot were really, well, giving us some remarks or demands, let's say, about some missing things in this plot, right? That it's in the bottom side, it's the standard box plot that we have in Spotfire. So the first one was the ability to change the whiskers drawing, what I just explained, simple and typical way of representation. The labels, we cannot add any labels in the box plot from Spotfire, right? We can have the tooltips, but the labels are not there present in the properties menu so far, right? I don't know if it's in the pipe or not, but that's a limitation for some of the customers we have. Also, the individual points representation, right? And being able to mark them. It is true that we can mark things in the built-in visual. We can mark the boxes, we can mark the whiskers and the outliers, but we cannot know what exactly the points underneath are, or we cannot mark them. Okay. And then the last one was to add new statistical measures into the statistics table. So this here in the bottom side is the statistics table. This can be configured to show some statistical measures that we can choose from a menu that we have in the properties configuration, but we cannot add new expressions, let's say, okay? And this was something that the customers wanted to have. And what I'm going to do next is to show you the demo, knowing that before showing my Spotfire instance, knowing that this is the first time that we show that outside our team. It's an in-progress in progress tool. Okay, and I will show you. Let me. If we go to the some of the requests, right, that the customer had, for example, the new expressions in the stats table. This is in progress, and this will be added soon by the team, but it's something that I cannot show right now. Okay, just to mention that. So this is a table. I have already done the import, right, in my page. This is the page I'm showing right now, the data used for the demo. I colored the columns that I want to show. So my use case will be to show the distribution of my subjects age per country. Okay, this is a demographics data table from a clinical trial. This is dummy data. I mean, this is the data that we use for training. That's why I took the opportunity to show you this use case, that it's really common with our customers. If I start right away with a box plot, typical box plot in Spotfire, and I put in here country and then age. Okay, age in here. Well, it's already done, and then color by country to see some colors there. Okay. So this is what we see in the built-in Spotfire box plots. If I drag and drop, let me just take the mod example. So I want just quickly to show you the extension. The extension of that specific piece that I'm going to drag and drop. Right? I'm just drag and dropping the mod extension that you can see here. Perfect. This is my mod developed by the team, and I'm going to do the same configurations in here, right? Just to see how the data should be the same, right? So the representation, of course, of the data should be the same. I'm just getting rid of the aggregation here. Excellent. I'm going to color by country as well. Country. Perfect. And then the row number, I'm just going to put it as row number here. Perfect. So you can see right now we have the same representation with the difference that we can see some labels there, right? We see labels for the median, labels for the Q1, Q3, and the minimum and maximum, which is good because already I can have more information than in this one. In this one, I have to go to look to this specific table to see the specific median, right? The labels, of course, can be hidden. The purpose here was to really see the difference, or let's say the things that we have added to the standard version. There's a menu that we can access from the y-axis. If I click in here, I can see the data points, individual data points per each country. And you can see here we can have see the same outliers, right? Just for you to check that the data is represented the same way. Okay. There's one difference though. If you can see, our whiskers are different. This one is getting to the specific point there, right? I can change that. I can change the calculation. You can see this. The title in here, so far it's calculation. We should change that to whiskers representation, etc. But that's something that that's why I was mentioning that this is in progress, right? So this is the whiskers taking in account the minimum and the maximum point. So you can see that we can change that quite easily. Another thing that we can show, of course, is this statistical table, right? This is something that we can add as well to be showing exactly the same things as in here. I'm going to just hide it, sorry, to gain some space here because it's really crowded up. Perfect. Something that we can see in the menu as well is the horizontal lines. We can add some mean or median, the same way as we can do with the built-in. But the thing that really as well make the difference is that for each one of the points in here, we can, for example, select one individual point, right? And the same way as Danis showed before, we could have the details visualization and have a table and have that specific point or line selected in here, right? That's something that it's really adding information to the user. And well, in this way, you can show quickly where the data points, where all the, for example, the volumetry of each one of the countries and the subjects. You see quickly that, for example, Spain is the one having more subjects enrolled. Okay, so this is just one of the examples we wanted to show you, and to see that it's mods really having the resources and the correct tools to do that. You can do really whatever you want, in the sense that as far as you use JavaScript and the API, of course, that you have all the features there to be available in the API. You can really customize all the features you need for your needs. And that will be my demo for today. Let me see. Should I maybe read quickly the questions, if there's something that we can quickly. Okay, let me. I don't know where to start. So this box plot mode is not available in TIBCO Exchange. This is something that we have developed. So that's something that can be shared afterwards, which ways of distributing things are available for mods. We can show the data points, the dots. I guess this question is referring to the points that we are selecting here. Something that I did not mention before, you can see when I select something, it's moving a bit. This is the jittering. This is done in order to be able to see all the points, and it's something similar as you have in the I don't remember if it's the scatter plot. Yeah, if I remember correctly. I think, yeah, I think that's all I could ask.
That's great. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, this is fantastic. Again, you can continue to ask questions. If something comes to mind, feel free to drop it in the question box as we continue. And I will then go ahead and introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker for the day is Linda, and she is currently the Senior Informatics Field Application Scientist with a special focus on biological applications. I will give you a moment to read her bio, and I will hand it over to you, Linda. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you all for joining and for the introduction and the nice presentations before. I'm coming a bit from the notebook world, so we're going to switch gears, and I'm going to talk about the problem that I have faced the request that I have faced in my time in the presets with the Signals notebook, but I promise to spin back to mods at the end of my presentation. So in Signals notebook, we have the possibility to export the whole system audit log either via APIs, which requires some programming skills, or to a CSV file, which is by using this interface and then clicking a button, which of course is way easier. I'm not a programmer. I don't know how to program. And this is kind of a situation that many of our smaller customers also face. We have smaller installations and they don't have a dedicated IT department and they don't want to deal with APIs and kind of are being at the end of the story, since the output by the CSV has exactly 4 columns. It has the user who's performing the action at a timestamp, and then all the data is parsed into a long JSON string, which then needs to be somehow parsed out, either programmatically, then back to the topic in the program, or what we figured out, we can use regular expressions within TIBCO Spotfire with the rextract function. And this is what I'm going to show you today. So in the moment we export the CSV and look at this JSON string, it does not really help me as a non-experienced person to understand what kind of information I'm looking at. So my first tip here is go and find a free JSON viewer where you can paste in your string in the text box, and then it displays you a nice hierarchy of the data that you're looking at. That helps me to understand what kind of data am I interested in. I'm interested, for example, in the action, in the user, and then there's a bar that's called ancestors. Ancestors is if you are sitting in a notebook, you have maybe a notebook. Inside the notebook, you have an experiment. Inside the experiment, you have a content element, a text file, a Word file, or maybe a samples table. And then inside the samples table, you have samples, or you have parallel experiments with parallel sub-experiments. So that gives you the nice overview about the data you're looking at and helps you to get started on the journey with the regular expressions. Now, what is a regular expression? Many might ask yourself. Regular expressions is a pattern recognition sequence where you can match text patterns by using a standardized language. You can also parse into programming languages, and you can use free tools like these two editors I have here, regx101 and regxr.com. Both have their different little differences, and they help me to develop those regular expressions in order to then put them into Spotfire and calculate my regular expressions to get out a dashboard. Let us go into the live demonstration. So our journey starts in the Signals Notebook audit log, which is accessible from the administrator page. So you need to have administrator rights to get there. You can either specify a specific query in the user you're interested, a time range you're interested, a resource type, or you just say, I will take everything in a time range and export this to CSV, which will then give you an output that looks as I showed in the screenshot. You have a user column, an action column, a created app. So that's already a starting point you can use out of the box. But then you have this long data string that you can copy and paste into the JSON viewer, for example, here. And then in the viewer, it displays me the hierarchy of this JSON string. So I can learn what am I looking at. It's created by, in this case, Paul Steffen, his first and last name. If there's an ancestor available, we see that's talking about a parallel experiment. And then there's an entity string that is actually, we're talking about actions and edit layout on my para sub-experiment that is living in this parallel experiment and might have different flags like is trashed, true or false, can read, can write, can edit. So there's a lot of data in the string that is interesting for system administrators to look at and get to it. I'm using these two editors. From this first editor here, I like that I can have an access very nicely to a cheat sheet that helps me to build my regular expressions and explains me how I can work. And if I hover over my expression, it also explains me what I'm actually doing here and if my expression is a valid expression or not. So in this case, I'm looking for a string that has this sequence of characters. I'm really looking at characters, and I'm looking at characters that matches lowercase a to z, uppercase a to z, and numbers from 0 to 9. And we find really one match. It's highlighting it nicely here. It's finding Paul. I can look at the details, and I actually can get also an explanation about what is happening. So it's looking into those characters, it's matching, it's case sensitive, and then we see the character set that it's matching. So I really get feedback live and in color to what I'm putting into. Similar, the other editor lets me, in this case, I'm looking at the last name. is extracting Kuhn for Paul with this string. But now if I have a look at the string, actually his last name has more than his last name. It actually has also a row in it with a dash, and that's not right represented. So we need to see how we get to this. So we see we have a dash. If we add a dash, that's not really bringing me to my result yet because there's 2 spaces, and that we can solve easily by just adding a space to my character set that I'm looking for. And with this case, I can find here Kuhn, chemist. But we also get an explanation here in this editor. And we get also the possibility to get this kind of quick references of all tokens, anchors, meta sequences, quantifiers, and so on. So it's nicely documented, both editors, they're all freeware, and they help me to start building my regular expressions. So now that I have done so, we can switch to Spotfire, and I'm going to show you how we add the data to Spotfire. So we have downloaded the CSV, and I can just go ahead and drag and drop the CSV into it. And then I get a nice preview of my data represented. I have also the possibility to check, well, it's a comma separated file, that's correct. It's US encoded, and then I see my 4 columns with the 4 column types. I see that created at is actually recognized as a string. And I don't want to have this as a string because that's my timestamp. So I have on the fly the possibility to change this to date time. And I can click OK. And then I can choose to append it as rows to my original data table. I have already preloaded a couple of data. So to show you how it looks like before we start working on it. I can also go ahead and load it directly into it and use the copy cell value function to take out my data string and put it back into the online tools to help me. And I just, for the sake of it, put in here my cheat sheet, so I also can use it within Spotfire. So the next step is we're going to add those regular expressions that we have designed in the tool into Spotfire. I have already prepared some. So I'm going to show it. And importantly, put it in the last table after as transformations in the last table. Don't put it on the first table because you want to go ahead and be able to add a second and the third table possibly. So all the transformations will happen at the end when the data is combined, and you don't need to repeat it on those nodes beforehand. So we're going back to this node. And let's start again with the first name. So there's a little difference now between Spotfire and the regex interfaces. We see here we're using single quotes on our regular expressions. Within Spotfire, it seems that we need to use double quotes for those strings we're looking for in order to be able to find it. And in the preview, I see it's pretty working. So we have the data string, and we find Larry. So we're doing the Rx extract function on the data column, which is our long string. So we can look for the text functions, and at the bottom of it, there is the Rx extract, which helps us to understand how Spotfire handles it. And yeah, we can paste in the regular expression, but we need to sometimes use double quotes or tag something with a backslash, so it's marked as a special character. And with this, we can start and continue to build all our columns that we're using. So we have first name, last name, then I concatenate first and last name to username. And then I'm going to grab the substring of entities. So if we go back to the JSON viewer, we have here an entities substring that contains all this data block until the end here, data. And I pass this out because it's easier for me to have a smaller chunk of values, or yeah, a shorter string to work on. And then I split it actually also after the digest, so, or at the ancestor, so I can split it between the actual entity and the ancestor entity. So the first step, as we say, we grab the entities, and here we character out these special characters because we need to bring those in. If we go back to our JSON string, we have the entities in here, and it starts with a quote, square brackets, and this winged brackets, and then we start with the data. So we need to have those characters being able to, and starting to get the EID, in this case, from the string. Then I split it, and I do some work on it in order to get to all the data that I would like to have. So I bring also all the ancestors, and then I find my entity type in the string with a case statement and my entity name. So after I have this original data table, I can go ahead and use the Spotfire natural query table to, if I can type, of course, table to go add visualization table. So I can either use my canvas where I have stuck in a lot of mods, or I use my natural language query processing from Spotfire. Now you see all the columns I have added to the system, and you see that I also have added some columns within underscore at the beginning of the string. That's something I like to do for columns that I don't want to display really, that are kind of helping columns that are helping me to get to the results and the calculated columns I want to. So just for you to see it, that we have it all in here already. And what I can do, it's really simply go for everything that has an underscore and remove this. I don't even need to think about. And we have it all nicely sorted out. Here's my original data string, and I was able to get the first name, the last name, username, entity type, and entity name out of it in the table. And now I have all the power of Spotfire and Spotfire mods available to build the visualizations I would like to. Of course, you can drill down to each of those levels, so you will add more of those regular expressions. And you can drive this to any level of data that is available in this output. So now I'm going to use the timeline chart here, the timeline mod, in order to display what's going on inside Signal's notebook. We already get a suggestion on how we could use this. Let's put on the legend here. So we're the timeline in the center. Right now, it's not a timeline, it's by user. So you could use that actually to see what every user is up to. But I'm going to use it at the creation date, and I'm going to use this hierarchy year, month, day. It shows me this data set now a bit more consolidated, and we have the action here, and I can actually add more, like the entity type, so I can see what action on which entity type is, and maybe who did this. We can create a hierarchy from it, so we can use the slider to do so. We could color now, for example, by action or by user. Let's color by action. New in Spotfire 12 actually is we can throw the color, so the legend, on top of the graph to save a bit of time, and we can toggle off this legend so I see all my actions, and I can use now my filtering screen to see what's going on by, let's find my filter entity type. There's my entity type. We can see what is an admin defined object, what has happened on the containers in the inventory, what is going on with the samples or with an experiment. So we can also use this type ahead to find an experiment. We see those experiments are here. And now we look for actions and say we would like to see all the sign and close related actions, for example, so we can check accept, reopen with control and click, and add and sign reviewers. So those little few actions has happened in this period of time. And now we would like to see who has done this. What is actually me. We can reset all filters and go back to our users and say, let's see what Christian was up to in the last time. Christian created experiments, uploaded resources, edited metadata. And so you can follow and monitor your system by any kind of parameter that is interesting for you over time using this timeline mod that you can either put on the timeline or on the action, on the entity type or entity name. And you're totally flexible on using now your Signals Notebook exported audit trail. And you can continue and happily just download the next chunk of data, drag and drop it in, and save it. So let's see, it's already now recognizing it's a date time. That's nice. We append this as row. And in a second, you will see that we will have more data available. There we go. Another little nice thing I would like to remind you of, which is maybe obvious for many people, but maybe not. In the flyout panel, you get information about your columns. So in this selection, we have 31 unique entity types. The most common are sample experiment, parallel sub-experiments, and text, and the least common are those. Actually, I also see my expression and see how I got to this column and have the possibility to modify it directly from here. I can also go ahead and see the unique values, and I could also reorder them from this panel if I wanted to. So I could really have nice and also filter it from here, show me everything what is an Excel sheet. So it gives me from this canvas a nice overview about my data, allows me to access all my mods that I would like to use in combination with native charts. I can create now a detailed visualization, for example, the table, where I have as a default have all data visible. So I always see all data. Of course, we need to get rid of some columns, but then I can click on something and get it nicely presented, but I also still have all the possibility to see my complete data table at all times. Like show me everything that was accepted. Yeah, so we see a seamless interaction between Spotfire mods and Spotfire native visualizations and filters, as well as the flyout canvas for the data and the analysis, as well as the possibility to add and modify our calculations and regular expressions to extract the data out of this JSON string without the need of being a programmer. And if I can make it, everybody can do it. That's really my philosophy here, since I'm not a programmer. And that concludes my little part of the demonstration. And we open up the session for the open office hours.
Linda, thank you so much. Just as a reminder to everyone for our open office hours, we have some experts here, so please submit your questions and we will work through answering those. And we'll just see how many questions come in. So if you want to just go ahead and put your question in the question box, we'll have somebody try to answer it here in the next few minutes, and we'll just see how many questions we have and go from there.
There are a few questions I think I missed during the first part. They were submitted in the box, and I have answered them through the chat box, and I received some confirmation. So I guess you could see my answer, but maybe it's worth showing the answer itself than reading the answer in the chat box. So let me quickly show my screen again. I'll take it from you, Linda, if I may.
Sure. Absolutely.
I guess, Robbie, you might need to, yes, that's great, thank you. All right, so the first one was about if the mods react to Spotfire's filters. And I think you saw a little bit of that with my colleague Linda's example, but in order to see more details, I can use the this interactive catalog I was building. So you can see that as well, other mods like the sunburst and the text card react to filters. So I can just bring the filter panel and I can start, for example, filtering the data based on the approval year of the biologics. So now, as soon as I start reducing the time span, you can see how the sunburst and the text card start showing the data that's left, not unfiltered, and all those biologics that were approved between the timelines I'm choosing using the filters now. So yeah, the answer is yes. Mods interact with Spotfire filters as any other visual. There was another question regarding how to export vector images from Spotfire. So you can, for example, if you want to export this mod as an image, you can just right-click, click export, and you can choose visualization to image, for example. But then you're just only given the option to export as a PNG file. So if you want to obtain vector graphic images that are very useful for publications, you need to follow a two-step process, which is first you need to export. Let me select some data. First, you need to export to a PowerPoint presentation. So I can choose to export a Microsoft PowerPoint. In this dialog, I have a lot of options. So I can choose to select the active visual, active page, so choosing one new page for each visual, and so on. Let's say I want the active visual, which would be the mod. And from there on, I can use the options by default for now. I can export to a new presentation. Click export. Now I am brought to PowerPoint. I can see my mod with the data I have marked. And from there on, all I have to do is just right-click and save as a picture from PowerPoint, where I have all the options, including saving as a scalable vector graphics as well. So you can, again, as you know, vector graphics are resolutionless, so you can, give them the size you need without losing the visibility and the comfort you have when stretching them vector graphics. So these were the two questions I wanted to address by showing you example, which I think it's way better than explaining directly in the chat box and reading the explanation directly. So again, if there are more questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
There's another question here. Do mods have any limitations on the amount of data, or are they responsive? Or are there any responsiveness issues?
That all depends on well, it's not about mods themselves. It's about Spotfire. As you probably know, you can use Spotfire to visualize data that is loaded in your computer's memory, and it has a capacity. Spotfire has a capacity that goes way beyond what, for example, Excel does. So there's no limit like the one Excel has for 16,000 rows. You can read millions and millions of rows in Spotfire, but at some point, let's say I think about 10 million rows, which is a large amount of data. It is recommended to start using other ways of interacting with data, like for example using or reading that data from a database and use in database calculations, and bring only the rows of data you need to populate the visualization. But the limitation is not on the mods themselves. It's not in the Spotfire native visuals themselves. It's of course in your computer's own memory.
That's great. Is it reasonable? Here's another question. Is it reasonable to think some of these mods will eventually become native? In other words, built into future versions?
Could be. That's I guess all up to the TIBCO community to decide that. I believe the idea here is to create a ever expanding set of visuals. Maybe some will become native. I guess that also depends on the the requests from users. Could be not. Probably mods are young still, so we'll see how much users will interact with mods, and I guess it all depends on that if they become native.
Okay, and a follow-up question that if a mod is updated in the community, like added with additional features, do we need to download it again?
Oh, that's a good question. If a mod is updated in the community, you need to download it again, yes, and you need to add it to the Spotfire library, for example, as I showed you at the beginning. The good part is that any Spotfire analysis that uses that mod, or let's say the oldest version of that mod, will get automatically updated. So imagine that you have created your own catalog of medications using this version of the Sunburst, but there's a new one. So yourself or probably the Spotfire server administrator needs to download the mod, add it to the library, and your Spotfire analysis, your own catalog, and any other Spotfire analysis that was using this old version of the Sunburst mode will get propagated with a new updated version of the Sunburst. So you wouldn't need to do anything else than just downloading the mod to Spotfire library.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Here's a question. Do you have a suggestion which mod would work best with a PCA biplot with arrows?
A PCA biplot.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a principal component analysis, I presume. That's a good question. I would still choose for a PCA analysis the regular scatter plot. You have also a native 3D scatter plot. But that depends on what you want to do exactly with the PCA analysis. If you want to see only the relationship between the principal components, I would still, as of today, choose any of the 2D or 3D versions of scatter plots, which are native in Spotfire.
Okay. Another question, what is the limit of CSV export from SNB? For example, can I do a complete year?
That is a question for me. So the limit right now for the CSV is 1,000 rows per download. So it depends on your installation and your usage if you can do a full year in one go. In our system, it's more like a week, a couple of weeks. But yeah, it depends on how strong the usage is and what you're looking for. You can also filter down on just show me administrative tasks or just show me end user tasks. I'm only interested in experiments, or I'm only interested in the materials library. So you could also break down your query to inside the Signals interface to do so, to get
okay. Their follow-up question is,
data.
Sorry to interrupt you, their follow-up question was, could they also do the via an API call to SNB?
Yeah, absolutely. So Signals Notebook APIs are also available to pull out the audit log. And then you have all the tools available well, you're already programming, right? So you can pass it out also with the reg expressions inside your code and put it also already in columns and export it and import it into Spotfire that way.
Great. Another question, the difference between details visualization and details on demand.
Yeah, sure. I can show that maybe.
Go ahead, Linda. Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen for a second. So the details visualization is a visualization you create on top of another plot to interact with them. And it does not need to be a table. It can be any other graphic. Maybe you want to have a bar chart now of the result that you're plotting in. So you can click on something and it will drill down in the bar chart. The details visualization or details on demand table you can access by view details on demand. It's kind of a pivoted table of my marked data. It has the column and then the value. You can pin it to the border of your screen or to the bottom of your screen. And you can also use the properties to select the columns you're interested in to display. But it's more, and it's a property list, which is then more handy to put it on the side. But if you have a longer value in it, it might not be displaying nicely. But it's always there. So it's responding to markings, as you can see, in similar way as a table. So it's more like a taste thing, I believe, a personal preference. If you want to have this details on demand table as a property list, or you want to have a full table with the columns you want, and you can also use then the coloring on this table and other features that has the details visualization available. And here you choose if you want to see, as I do, all data or empty visualization or message on empty background. You can continue to use it as markings for the next visualization, so you can link them together to the next visualization in and or clauses. So that's really the difference. The details on demand is out of the box property list with all columns you want to see on markings. And with the details visualization, you have any visualization available in Spotfire to display your drill down values.
Another question came through. Is there a skeleton mod that we could use as a starting point for developing our own mods?
Yeah, I can answer that. There are a lot of tutorials, videos. Well, not a lot, but there are a handful of them out there. There's still something that it's quite recurrent in the community TIBCO, that it's the bar chart plot. So they have in the community, when you download the examples, you have the bar chart mode example, and this seems to be quite easy to start with. So that would be, for me, the skeleton, let's say, to start learning a bit about mods.
Another question, can custom mods be accessed by native filters?
Yes, correct. We can use as well in the Voxel, for example, that we developed. All filters, native filters, are represented and reacted by the mods. Yeah.
Great. Another question came in. I don't know whether it's feasible to put custom shape for, say, a scatter plot or a bar chart. Can I use mod for that purpose?
Yeah, I read this one. Yeah, you could use mods for this. The problem is that you will need to develop the visualization entirely, right? So you cannot add just bits of mods into a native Spotfire visualization. So you can just create your own mods to have your custom shapes, etc.
Okay, fantastic. Again, I think we talked about this before, but the question came in again. Could you answer in the chat about the limit on CSV export? I think you said it's 1,000 lines, so it depends on your data set, but I think that's what you said. Yeah. Perfect. We do want to try to, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Robbie, I did just answer the question about permission levels. I don't know if that's seen or not, but in order to trust an external mod and be able to use it, you just need a license that it's available in the administration manager that says trust mods in order to do that. So you don't need to be an admin, it's just you need to have the license activated for your profile or your group.
Oh, great. Can you estimate when the new box plots will be available?
Yeah, so this is in progress. As I was saying, there's that specific add custom stat expression that needs to be still finished. But we can follow up on this one, because that's something that, of course, we need to see with my team. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I do want to try to make sure we answer as many questions as we can, but we're also running out of time. So if you have any last minute, really urgent questions, if you want to put that in the chat now, we'll try to address that. Otherwise, we can certainly take some questions offline as well. I think there were some general sense of questions around getting training. I don't know if you guys have any additional resources you want to mention for, training specifically.
I can mention that we've done already some mentoring about mods, regarding mods, right? There's no, as far as I know, specific training developed for mods so far, but I think it's in progress. But mentoring, we've already done some of those.
Okay. Okay.
And
Fantastic.
also YouTube is a great source for training on Spotfire mods from the Dr. Spotfire team.
Great. Yeah, Dr. Spotfire team on YouTube. So that's a great suggestion.
Same for
All right.
regular expressions. There's tons of trainings available. If you don't feel comfortable, it's easy to find trainings and understand it there.
Awesome. All right, if there are no other questions, I think we'll be concluding our session just a few minutes early today. I just want to make sure if there was anything else part of this office hours that we got those answered. But again, a huge thanks to our speakers and for their presentations today. And thank you for joining us for this Spotfire Quarterly Connect. Our next event, if you mark your calendars, will be on December 7th. So plan on attending then. There'll be some additional information coming out about that session on December 7th. Again, we will share out this recording with everyone pretty soon here in the next within the next week or so. And that concludes our session for today. So thank you again and have a great day.
One last note, of course, you can reach out to all of us if you have more specific questions. We're happy to help and engage with you on your customer specific issues, problems, and demands.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining.
Bye,
Bye all.